Cancel culture is so un-Jewish, and here's why. Cancel culture, whether it's J.K. Rowling, Ellen DeGeneres, Piers Morgan, Sharon Osbourne, even former presidents, we live in a time where you say the wrong thing, you do something wrong, and that's it. And by the way, sometimes things people do in the whole cancel culture world can really be wrong, seriously wrong. But we're living in a time where we're basically saying, you do something wrong that we think is beyond the pale, that's it, cancelled. You're whitewashed from society, from history. It's really actually, I think, one of the worst things you could possibly lose, your good name. Even more, I would say, than health or finance. The having a good name or losing your good name means you can no longer interact with the world, and we've felt so massively and so painfully over the last year what lack of interconnectivity between other people can feel like, and what loneliness can feel like. It's actually the first thing that the Torah tells us is not good. It's not good for man to be alone, and that's what cancel culture does. So we've got to think very long and hard before we decide someone is completely beyond the pale and needs to be removed from society. I think we live in an age of fanaticism. Whatever happened to balance or being nuanced? I remember a rabbi once saying to me, I said, what do you think of President Trump? And he said, everyone's saying, or when it came to President Biden or Obama, everyone's saying, are you for him or against him? Is he good or bad? And he said, whatever happened to nuance? Why can't I say, I like this aspect of him, but I don't like that aspect of that person. I like that policy that he did. I don't like that policy that he did. Rabbi Sachs, of blessed memory, spoke about the difference between shame cultures and guilt cultures. He said that Greece was a shame culture that basically adopted this principle that said you should be ashamed, you should feel shame, and we should shame the people that do things wrong. But then there's another moral code, and that's the Jewish code, which is a guilt society. What's the difference between shame and guilt? Shame says what you do is irreparable. Guilt says we all have a conscience, and we all are able to do good, and we can all do teshuvah, we can all return to that, our origins of goodness that we all have within us, and it separates the actor from the action, the sin from the sinner. It's not to say that people shouldn't be held accountable for what they do, but it says you can, in the future, detach yourself from that bad thing that you did if you can change your ways, look and understand, and feel remorse and regret. So cancel culture is really very un-Jewish because we believe in forgiveness. We believe that there is hope for humanity. Cancel culture really is saying there's no hope for people. It's very dehumanizing. I think of some people who drastically turned around their lives from doing terrible things, whether it's the son of a Hamas leader who ended up working for Israel as a spy. I mean, these are dramatic changes. We've seen throughout history people changing from doing acts of evil to good and to changing their ways. And this isn't to say that we shouldn't whitewash people's past. We should. In fact, we're meant to acknowledge wrongdoing that people do. And Judaism cares very much about what's considered acceptable in public, but it separates what's acceptable in terms of the action and the actor. And it's also not to say that some acts require serious reprimanding, and maybe there are even a small number of cases that are irreparable and unforgivable. At least for us, we're not able to forgive them. That might be in God's department. But I think the main point is that no one is perfect. It says in Pirkei Avot, don't trust yourself until the day you die. Sometimes we look at other people and we think, I'd never do that. We can never really judge people until we're in their shoes. And the point is we'll never be in someone else's shoes. And so we can never understand the calculations that they went through, the life that they've led, what led them to do the things that they do. There's a Jewish concept that whatever happens in the non-Jewish world, in the wider world, is one of God's ways of teaching the Jewish people about some of the issues or symptoms that are going on within the Jewish community itself. And it's God's way of telling the Jewish people this is an issue that you need to fix. And so I ask you, dear viewers, does the Jewish community have a culture of cancel culture, or do we face such a problem? Whether it's different organizations attacking one another, even different leaders, sometimes even spiritual leaders going after one another to the point of saying this person is beyond the pale and should be completely cut off from any public regard or standing. Whatever happened to conversation? You can vehemently disagree with someone, but the need to cancel them, to say that they should be annihilated from any form of conversation, Think very long and hard about that, because that is one of the most dehumanizing things that you could possibly do to someone. What makes us human is the fact that we are flawed and the fact that we all have the ability to change. What's amazing about the Torah is that unlike any other holy book, as far as I'm aware, it criticizes its spiritual leaders. Unlike other religions, it's full of pointing out their mistakes, but also pointing out how they recovered from their mistakes. I think that's the essence of what it is to be human, and therefore cancel culture is something that we need to resist. We as a Jewish community and the wider world need to think about, and we need to start thinking more about the idea of conversation, communication, repentance, and forgiveness. I'm Ollie Annisfeld, and you're watching JTV.